Benvinguts i benvingudes a aquest acte que hem titulat Totes en Palestina, que comptarà amb la participació de Roger Waters, acompanyat de Rania Muhareb, de l'organització palestina Al-Haq, i de Sandra Barrilaro, de Rumba Gaza, la flotilla de la llibertat, que també pujaran aquí a l'escenari. La Franja de Gaza, Palestina, està vivint des del 30 de març l'últim episodi més sagnant dels últims anys. Una massacre d'una trentena de palestins i palestines assassinades per l'exèrcit d'ocupació israelià i prop de 2.000 ferits. La gran marxa del retorn continua resistint fins al dia 15 de maig, dia en el que es complirà el 70è aniversari de la Nakba, quan 750.000 persones van ser expulsades de les seves llars i de les seves terres. La gran marxa del retorn vol exigir el retorn de les persones palestines refugiades i dels seus descendents a les seves llars d'origen. Davant d'aquests fets, i aprofitant que el músic Roger Waters es troba a Barcelona iniciant la seva gira As and Them, el proper cap de setmana al Palau Sant Jordi, hem cregut oportú trobar-nos aquí totes per pensar i parlar sobre l'ocupació i el bloqueig de Palestina, la justícia, la solidaritat i els drets de tota la població palestina.
In response, of course, what we've seen over the past 2 weeks is a huge and enormous suppression of protests by the Israeli occupying forces who've used excessive force, but not only excessive force, actual intent to use that force. They have come out in public statements even 2 days before the protests, and they said the orders given to the soldiers is to use a lot of force. In the aftermath, the spokesperson of the Israel Defense Forces, which we call the Israeli Occupation Forces, came and said that nothing was uncontrolled, everything was calculated, and they know where every bullet landed. As per their usual practice, of course, that tweet was immediately deleted as soon as it came out, because in the end it proved intent and knowledge of their actions and of the killings that took place last Friday, but also this Friday on the 6th of April.
There is no reasonable or legitimate counterclaim to the stories that we're hearing now coming out of Gaza, where this peaceful protest by many, many thousands of Gazaans living as they do under these intolerable conditions is being met with lethal force by an occupying army that is soldiered by men and women who have been taught 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, since the moment of their birth, that they are living in a situation where they are surrounded by animals, by wild beasts who need to be contained and, if necessarily, destroyed. Lieberman, what is he? Is he the Foreign Secretary? He actually said yesterday in a public statement that there are no innocents in Gaza. Not one single human being living in Gaza is innocent. It doesn't matter if you were born yesterday or the day before yesterday. You are guilty, and you're guilty of the crime of being an Arab. And they don't want you there.
Impunity is what we're seeing and what we have been seeing for decades in past time. And I think right now the international community is at a crossroads. Are these crimes going to be investigated? And if they're not going to be investigated, what happens to all the statements that have been made by the UN, by the International Criminal Court, by the UN human rights experts? All of them have had the same thing. They have said these killings may amount to war crimes, the same way as you mentioned corporate complicity in the settlement enterprise. The settlements have existed for 50 years. They're also a war crime, also recognized by the international community, but there is no action. So I think we can sit here another decade and say exactly the same thing. If there is no accountability, if there are no investigations, and Israel has announced, Lieberman again, announced that there will be no investigations into the last week's incidents and killings. All of this is very, very worrying for us because, as you say, we believe in human rights, but I think human rights is not just a belief. This is our legal understanding of the framework is that these are legal obligations on states. If they do not fulfill these obligations, then they are criminally liable or otherwise liable as well. That is in relation to corporate complicity and also businesses domiciled in states and operating in the settlements. We need some sort of action, and I think we at Al-Haq have been calling for sanctions for a long time, but no state seems to be willing to impose sanctions. That's what we're seeing right now.
Things are moving. Not fast, in fact they're moving very slowly, and they're moving much too slowly, but they are moving. And almost every day somebody new joins this movement, and some days it's a big thing, some days it might be one campus and one university in the United States or in another country. One day it might be one member of parliament in Norway standing up to be counted, or almost every day the South African unions and so on and so forth are making statements about, and let us not forget, South Africa is a very important player in this whole story because they've lived this story. The black South Africans lived this story in the 80s and 90s. And the black South Africans were not delivered from slavery by the governments of the Western world. They were delivered by us. They were delivered by the people in this room. They were delivered by the anti-apartheid movement. But they would deny that. People deny always the anti-apartheid movement had actually any real political effect. And certain governments, mine included, Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan, were the two holdouts until you couldn't hold out any longer because every other single country in the world had decided that, that the apartheid regime that was ruling South Africa could not be allowed to continue to do so. And eventually that will happen to this Israeli regime, to the settler government in Israel that is trying to operate apartheid in the Holy Land, because these people in this room will not allow it, because we all know deep in our hearts that there is right and there is wrong, and there is truth and there is deceit. And we know the difference between the two. And that gives us our strength. The strength in the BDS movement lies in the fact that we are on the right side of this piece of history because we love our brothers and sisters, and we will stand by them through thick and thin.
Movimientos como el boicot, desinversiones y sanciones, o como lo que yo represento, la flotilla de la libertad, son acciones de la sociedad, de la ciudadanía, que estamos haciendo lo que creemos, lo que dice Roger, ¿no? Lo correcto, que estamos en el lado bueno y que estamos haciendo el trabajo que realmente correspondería a las instituciones internacionales y a nuestros gobiernos. Pero en vista de que no se hace, pues efectivamente tenemos que ser la ciudadanía quien hagamos ese trabajo porque es lo justo y es lo correcto.
But people will not be cowed. We only live once, you know. We get this one chance to be on this small, fragile, flimsy little planet that we call the Earth, that we love and that we want to protect because of our children and our children's children, and because of all our fellow human beings on the planet. And we will not be told to sit. We will not be told to get back in our box and lie down and be quiet. We will not let them eat this planet up and spit it out. This planet must be protected for future generations from the corporate machine that would devour it for its own nefarious purposes, you know, to build up whatever it is that they build up. They don't build up much joy, I promise you that, because the only joy that there is to be had out of life is the joy that we give from giving and receiving love from others. Family makes us happy, friends make us happy, communication with other people makes us happy. being in groups like this, at meetings where we're trying to affect some change so that other people get a fair chance to be happy too. That's what enriches our lives and makes us get up the next morning and go about our work feeling good about it and about ourselves. So we have to educate the arseholes into this way of thinking for the sake of our children and their children and their children.